Hello, thank you for your questions and comments. Some of the questions I have received by email I have answered directly, and if they are of an individual and personal nature, they will not be included here. But there are plenty of questions and comments to talk about today, so I will begin. Please forgive my mispronunciation of any of your names. I will try my best. So, the first question from Ravindra Bansode. Very nice talk, Bhante. As you said in, as you said in talk, physical existence of boredom. Can you please explain existence of defilement in our physical body? Thanks. As you said in talk, physical existence of boredom. Can you please I see. So, I think what Ravindra is referring to there, I expressed I described an experience of the physical feeling of boredom. If you really experience fed-upness, boredom, that feeling of climbing the walls, I don't know what to do, not everybody has had the misfortune or good fortune, depending on your point of view, to have experienced that. But if you have, you will notice there is a physical feeling. As with all emotions, they have a corresponding physical feeling. So if you take anxiety or nervousness, one can usually locate, and most of these emotions, the physical feeling can usually be located around the central torso, solar plexus, this area, of, like we would describe butterflies or a lightness, a fluttering. It's hard to describe, but this is what I was referring to. But the question is, explain existence of defilement in our physical body. Well, the defilement is not in your physical body. It is arising from the nature of greed, hatred, or delusion. Let's take desire, for instance, which comes from greed, the desire to have. Or even through hatred, the desire not to have. So liking or disliking. This leads to, again, a corresponding physical feeling to that emotion. I mean, a very obvious one is if you're thirsty or wanting something to drink and you see a nice refreshing drink, your mouth might water. This is a physical example of your body responding to an emotion. It serves no purpose other than it is getting your mouth and digestive system ready for the oncoming food or water. But they're not arising, the defilements are not arising from our body. The defilements are coming from the mind. And as a result of the root defilements of greed, hatred or delusion, which simply put are liking, disliking, or confusion, and confusion. So I hope that answers that question. Right, the next one is a bit longer. Deepika Kader. Thank you, Deepika Kader. Wandami Bhante. Very nice talk, but Bhante, how in life one can get detached from the bondings which have created, for example, with family, friends, because from my experience I feel all relationships hurts. Because everyone expects from you, and when you can't complete their expectations, it leads to suffering. Even if we know that this is suffering, and still we live with it, but somewhere in your heart you feel this is not right, not every person can be perfect and right. Why people just don't accept this lay life I find it is difficult to be detached, because your family will never let go, even if we know to let go. I think, Deepika, what you're saying there is friends and family have expectations of you and you don't want to let them down. Is that right? Well, of course you don't want to let them down, so don't try and meet their expectations, because if you try and you don't meet their expectations, the process of trying is encouraging them to expect more. So simply do let go. You know whether you want to or can or can't meet their expectations. So it is up to you. The only expectations there are, or you should have, are to you should have none other than the expectation of practicing moral virtue, meditation, and developing wholesome mind states, and as well as reducing unwholesome mind states, will eventually bring you to freedom from suffering in this lifetime. Now, this is not everyone in the world's goal, whether they be friends or family, close associates or enemies. It doesn't matter. Your goal is your intention and your expectation. Don't be worrying about all of the other people's expectations, all of the other people's goals. They will have struggles meeting their own goals and their own expectations, as you will have troubles meeting your own goals and your expectations. How on earth can you be expected to meet everyone else's goals and expectations when you have the struggle of meeting your own? No. You need to firstly look at your life, what you are doing. If you are practicing well, you will arrive at a stage in life where people will, whatever their former expectations were of you, they will still be happy with the results, because if you are happy, then they will be happy. If they have any respect, love, care for you as an individual, all they really want is for you to be happy. Now, if there is any other motive behind their reasoning or expectations or their goals for you, then that is their problem, not yours. So how do you let go? You don't have to physically go and say, I'm not doing what you expect me to do. No, you just do what you know is the right thing to do. And you practice this your actions of body, speech and mind with care, with diligence, morality, thought for others, and you cannot go wrong. If you keep 5 precepts, and this is very important: no killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, or the taking of intoxicants. You cannot harm anyone else, offend anybody else, or disturb anyone else's way of life. You become innocuous. You can become invisible. You can become unnoticeable. And then people will not have expectations of you as an invisible, unnoticeable, innocuous person. You will just blend into the background. It's like camouflage. So don't worry about people's expectations. This, with regards to family, is such a very common question that comes from India. Now, I'm not singling India out, but it's a great and a wonderful and marvellous thing that this comes from the sort of the 20s to 30-year-old generation, whose parents have great expectations of their children, and children have great expectation, respect for their parents' ideas, and there often becomes a great deal of friction here. But often this friction is not necessarily about what you are doing, but about this religious aspect. So if it is the religious aspect, just leave that out of it. It doesn't need to be discussed. So if, for instance, your parents are very devoutly practicing Hindus, you do not need to go around arguing with them about that and say, I'm not doing that anymore, I am now a practicing Buddhist. Just be quiet and practice your Buddhism in silence. It doesn't need voicing. You don't need to convert anyone. What will happen is you will develop positively. They will see this and they will ask you to help them. So that's another aspect that I'm reading between the lines, could be behind your question. So apologies if that's wrong, but it's often the reason behind this, a similar question that I receive quite often. So moving on to the next one, from Quan Cheng. Bhante, do we say Bhutto in our mind or actually saying it out? It interferes with the breathing if I say it out. My breath tends to be slow, heavy and tiresome enough for me to say in the mind Bhutto multiple times. I find lengthening the mantra allows the mind to drift into all kinds of hindrances again. Thanks for your answer in advance. Okay, so this is the mantra, the saying of the mantra, the word Bhutto, is to help, not to hinder. So firstly, one does not need to say it out loud. There are occasions when you might feel it's nice to, if you're on your own and you're just walking quickly, you might just say Bhutto, 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 Bhutto. But no, this is really some way of occupying the mind in one respect, in order that the other aspects that your mind has to deal with are less affected by distractions. You're occupying, say your mind can do 3 things at once. If you give it Bhutto to hold on to, then there's only 2 things. So the thing you should be doing has less distraction. There's only one thing that can distract you. So Bhutto, Bhutto, Bhutto ought to be said quietly in the mind. If it's in conjunction with the breath, as opposed to as an alternative to the breath, then one would just simply say it in time with the natural breath. So just as you breathe in, imagine that word Bhut, and as you breathe out, To, like this, in the mind. So it shouldn't actually have any effect on the breath. Then you're occupying your mind with 2 things. You're occupying your mind with attention, your conscious awareness on the breathing in and the breathing out, the breath, and the saying of the mantra Bhutto. Now it would be quite difficult really to do much other than that with your mind. So the tendency for discursive thought and mental chitter-chatter is vastly reduced, and this is the aim behind it. Really, you should just play around with it. You might want to change the word, you might not want to use it at all. These are ideas that have been used and practiced by many and successfully, but each individual is different and we all prefer different techniques. Personally, meditation objects, I'm reluctant to give much advice on any meditation objects other than observation of the breath, anapanasati, because it is my experience and I'm talking from my experience. And in conjunction with that, I use this mantra of Bhutto, Bhutto, because I find that helps sometimes to just calm the mind from discursive thought. Mainly if I'm practicing walking meditation, or for instance walking to somewhere. If I'm walking on arms round, I would use the opportunity, if I wasn't trying to learn an aspect of chanting or Pali verse, which is often what I use that opportunity for, I would use this mantra, Bhutto, Bhutto, Bhutto. But this would be in conjunction with stepping left, stepping right, stepping left, stepping right, stepping left. Rather than saying that, I would say Bhutto, Bhutto, Bhutto. Or even you can say Bhutto on stepping right, Bhutto on stepping left. It's whatever suits you. There's no hard and fast rules. It doesn't matter. Or if it's uncomfortable and it's arousing all kinds of thoughts and hindrances, as you say, then forget all about it. Don't do it at all. Maybe come back to it another day and try it again. But it's just an idea. It's there's no. It is useful as a word, and it provokes no further thought, judgment, or comment. It could be any two-syllable word, one that does not provoke further investigation, but literally is an anchor to really pin your mind to something, even if it is helping to keep your mind on the meditation object of the breath by using it in conjunction with that. Right. But it is really not necessary to say it out loud, no. So the next question from Born in Washing Machine. I hope you weren't, but dear teacher, as long as I started meditation practice and intellectual digging in Buddhist about way to live, there is inside me started something creative and fascinating. Other hand world outside isn't anymore the same. A true about it is really freaked me out. I think some of these messages may have come through Google Translate, so forgive me if they're sounding a little strange. Freak out me. Only keeping love, kindness gives kind of relief in communication with people. Your teachings are so helpful and fundamental, unspeakable. Thank you. Okay, so that's very nice. Thank you for your comments, Born in Washing Machine. Let me just try and find the question there. Buddhist way there is inside is something creative. Right, so since you've been developing the practice or practicing Buddhism, from which I assume you to mean you are keeping 5 precepts, practicing meditation and developing wisdom, SILA, Samadhi, Panya. These 3 need to be practiced in conjunction with each other, and then you are practicing Buddhism. The outside world seems different. Yes, it will. Your perception of the outside world will seem different. And what is happening with this practice of Sila, Samadhi and Panya is you are helping to soften, calm those defilements of greed, hatred and delusion, but mostly quell or reduce desire, because it is this desire that is the main cause of suffering. And the way this desire manifests after its reduction in your perception of the outside world is through disenchantment. So things that ordinarily previously seemed extremely exciting, interesting, things that you were always wanting and craving to do may no longer seem so enticing. And even you may find from time to time, take for example going to the cinema, you may find, well, I'm really not sure that that's as fun as I seem to remember it being in the past, and I'm not really quite sure if I want to do that anymore. Or going out with certain groups of friends to pubs and clubs and drinking and dancing and singing. Your attitude to what you used to do and how you used to enjoy yourself will change, and this is Nirodha. This is the beginnings of disenchantment. This is the beginning of the path towards reducing and ending suffering. So yes, things will seem different, Now, in relation with, so don't let it freak you out. In relation with your, and then I think the next part of your question is about with other people, your relationships with other people. Within this process, or as a result of this process of disenchantment and that your change in perception on the outside world, will come to some extent a certain amount of dropping away of relationships and friendships with other people. For instance, where I mentioned there a group of friends that you might go out socializing with, drinking and smoking and singing and dancing. If you're not doing that anymore, you're probably not going to see so much of them. But this doesn't mean you fall out with them. You may just not have so much communication with them. And this can also be a result with some members of your family, even close family. You might have less to do with them, but not in a sad way, just you will see them for more quality time than quantity. And this is part of the results of the practice, to be expected, but can lead to feeling freaked out if you're not understanding what is happening. It's a good thing. It means your practice is working. And you'll meet new kinds of people as a result, possibly, whom are have similar aspirations to yourself. And you will, with all people, be able to develop loving kindness, we call metta, more easily. Firstly, this has to start with yourself, and when you're leading a wholesome life, when you're keeping SILA, meditating and developing wisdom, SILA, the moral precepts, then when you're leading a life like this, you will be able to have metta for yourself. Firstly, you will feel loving kindness when it's for yourself. Sounds a bit strange, so just call it metta. But you know, you need to be able to learn to respect, love yourself before you can respect, love others. But naturally, you don't need to learn this, it will happen. And therefore you will have then more metta for all beings, for other people, and compassion, empathetic joy will also come to pass as a result of your practice. So I'm sorry if I've misunderstood your question in any way. It's a little bit confusing for me, but I hope that answers it as best as I can for now. So the next question from N. Davis. Good morning, Bhante. New subscriber and happy to find your channel. Are you based in Thailand now? Would be very interested in your journey thus far. Yes, I am based in Thailand now. I'm living here at this monastery, and rather than on Tudong, wandering as I was in India, all over the place, I've settled in a very small community of just 4 monks and 4 bhikkhus and 1 samanera. There are also some mechis, which are the Thai equivalent of nuns, but they live separately. The journey thus far. So I include bits of my journey thus far often in talks, because they've been part of my learning, those bits. In the earlier videos is a longer, in the description, if you click description, it comes up with, at the moment, quite a short description, because I reduced it considerably. But if you go back to the older videos and look at the description, then it describes me, my life so far, up until when I lived in India, from school, in a very, very précis, condensed and bullet point biography. So that is my journey thus far. But for the more graphic details. Bits are included in most talks. I'll mention something I've come across in my past on this path, leading me to this point in my life, here and now. Because of course that is all that's relevant here and now. The past is only memories, and they are unreliable. As I found writing that description, it's quite hard to get precise dates and you've even got to check up on some of these things to be really sure. When did I go there? When did I have to look in passports? And then old passports you haven't got. And so I'll probably redo that and add it back on in the description, because I thought the description was a bit more restrictive in how many words you could put. So I think you can put on this description a few more, so I might add that back in again. One day I may do. I think recently I talked quite a bit about my early years and journey here, path here, whatever you'd like to call it, but I don't really like talking about me so much because that's not really the point of this channel. But I really don't mind talking about what would you call it, my journey thus far, if it's helpful. So this is why I include various points in different talks from time to time. So the answer is go back through all the videos and watch them. There'll be things coming up there. Like the one that's how to become a monk is only from my own experience. And this has only been around 8 months, this channel, so you don't have to look back for years and years. You can just flick through them. You can generally pick something up from those. Thank you. Next question from Daniel Kopek. Hello. It is kind of scary for someone not from Thailand to see something that big just crawling on the net so close. I can imagine the panic if I was there. I think you're referring to the geckos last night or the night before. Well, they come closer than that. They come inside as well and crawl around very close. Wherever you're living, it doesn't matter if you're in the jungle and you're living with creatures and insects, or you're living in a house with people. We have to get used to them, and they have to get used to us. And you know, the best way is keeping SILA again. Always, this is our guide, our protection. You can't harm any living beings if you're keeping SILA, and they know that, they sense that, and they won't want to harm you. If you accidentally tread on a big snake, the other morning, I've become very relaxed about these things. The other morning I was walking along one of these little just mud paths, and it was dark, only a small torch, and fortunately I had the small torch, but there was a snake, I think a python or a boa constrictor, which was this in diameter and probably 5 meters long. A huge thing. I mean, its head was at least as big as that, with big yellow eyes. It was like something from a movie. I'd never seen a snake this big in reality before, outside of a zoo. Not even in a zoo, I don't think. And this was just on my path that I walk with just very flip-flops, you know, bare feet and flip-flops, up and down several times a day. The little path to where I get my coffee. So it's often trodden, this path. So it's dark, and do you know, I just saw the snake. It's laying there. It didn't make me jump. Some years back I would have probably screamed and run away, but no, I thought, I even videoed it. There's a video of it. So I thought, I was going to walk past. I thought, there's room, there's a foot either side, I can just walk around it. But I thought, no, that would be entering into its comfort zone, its space. And we have to practice mindfulness living in the jungle. Everybody has to practice mindfulness wherever they live. for their own safety, apart from anything else, and especially here. So I just thought, no, I'll walk the long way round. So walked back and around and went to the other end of the path where I could see it from the other direction, and it was taking up most of the length of this path. So until the sun arose later on, it stayed there. So I walked around and didn't disturb it, and it was therefore not, it didn't necessarily want to disturb or hurt me. It certainly saw me with its big yellow eyes, and it could have caught me more. I could never have outrun it. It probably could go zoom straight like that and bite you, crush you, or do whatever they do in the flash of an eye before you could even think to run away. But as long as you aren't planning to do it any harm, and to some extent you're not scared, then these things leave you alone. Often the emotion of fear can also make the other creatures feel fearful, and therefore then they have this defense mechanism which then they may sting or bite. But if you have no fear and you don't mean to cause any harm, most of these creatures leave you alone. And I love those geckos. I mean, there's one that lives in my bathroom, which is just down here, and he's this big. He's a foot long and this round, and he's a lovely fellow, and he just lives on top of the wall. The gap between the roof and the wall is like this, and he lives on top of the walls. And in the evenings and early mornings he comes out and sticks on the wall and just looks at me, and we have a little talk. But there's many other such creatures here. So yes, don't you come to Thailand, Daniel Kopek, and don't worry about such things, they're fine. Next question from Sensei K-san. Thank you, Phra Dan, for all that effort producing Dharma videos for us all. Would you consider some actual non-guided meditation videos of about 30 minutes, maybe by the beach / forest, with you meditating in it? Subscribers can then follow along for the duration of that video with ambient nature sounds. Thank you, Sadhu. Well, okay. Well, firstly, I should say the point of meditation is we are going within. We're looking inward, and should not be reliant on external stimulation. Now, I know there are lots of beautiful videos on YouTube with ambient sounds of rain and fires and sunsets and beaches and special music and ringing bells. This is all hearing or seeing and hearing. We can light incense for nice smells and aromatherapy candles. Tasting, not so much, you know, this would be eating, but we are using the senses as a crutch, if you like, for meditation. As a meditation object, we're using the senses of seeing, hearing, smelling, and there are tasting, touching and thinking as well. But we shouldn't be really doing that. To look inward, we need to be going inside with our conscious awareness to seeing how thoughts are arising and thoughts are passing away, how physical feelings are arising and physical feelings are passing away. And the best way to do this is to use an innocuous meditation object such as the breath, which is also bringing you into the body. But I do appreciate what you're saying, that some people can relax with some nice ambient sounds. And what I can do, I think, because I have been looking to do a short, about 30-minute short guided meditation live, but I haven't worked out how on live we can use the external mic, and therefore you will only hear ambient sounds rather than me. So maybe I could do a live unguided meditation experimentally on the beach Maybe I'll try that this evening. I often, after evening chanting, puja, go and sit on the beach for half an hour or so anyway. This isn't my formal meditation, it's just a very nice place to sit, but I can develop some good meditation there. I'm undisturbed just until the sun goes down. So I would like to give that a go. Yes, I will try that, Sensei Kei-san. But I would also like people to be encouraged to not be reliant on external stimuli for their meditation, to rely on what you have with you. If you were just dumped in a cave on a mountain with no electricity and nothing, or on a desert island, and I've lived in all of these kind of places, you don't have phones, you don't have electricity, you don't have anything for entertainment or distraction, or even books to read. So the point, what attracted me towards meditation, the very first place, was exactly that. Not even states of calmness or anything we may hear about or talk about now. It was literally the ability to have something that was free and I could have anywhere without the reliance on anyone else or anything else, and it never ran out. Because I'd developed a reliance on so many things, like socializing, like entertainment, like drinking, like smoking, like eating, like all things wonderful and good in my life and enjoyable, but also realized that you don't always have availability of those things, and the most suffering comes from when you can't have what you want. Before I'd even heard, well, I'd heard of Buddhism, but before I even knew what Buddhism was about, I wanted to find something that was infinitely satisfying and free. Something that I could always have to enjoy, that no one could take away and can't run out, and you don't need any money for. And what helped me to realize that this would be a useful thing to have was when I was on occasions put in a situation whereby I could not have anything I wanted, for one reason or another I won't go into, and had to rely on just purely in solitude, looking inwardly to find what could give me the greatest and highest form of contentment. And I remembered as a child, I was sent to France to some of my stepfather's relations there, because he was half French, for my school summer holidays. And I actually hated this. I mean, I can't imagine anything better now for a child. And I so wish I'd made the most of this opportunity and enjoyed it. But no, I was sent to these beautiful places in the south of France, but I just wanted to be at home, not in France on my own with foreign French-speaking people. And I had to just really absorb inwardly at this time, whilst I was lonely for months on end in this foreign land. And I did find degrees of enjoyment and calm in simply sitting and looking at something. I remember it was at one point a towel. I used to go to a local swimming pool and swim. It's an outside pool, because it was always lovely in summer, and I had a towel, and I remember just sitting one day for hours on end just looking at the little curly bits of whatever you call this that makes up a towel that you dry yourself with, and just looking at them individually and just staring at them like this, and my mind would clear and I would just focus on this, and then I wasn't concerned with anything French, anything I was missing, anything I wanted. I was just focused with my attention on this curly piece of towel. And similarly, when I first had this experience of changing school, which I never coped with very well, And of course we do that from little school to bigger school, and then bigger school to, you know, bigger each time we change school. I found I did use something there. I'd look in we'd have a satchel, like where you put your books or pencil case in, or if I didn't have my satchel, the pencil case itself, I would open this and I would stare into the satchel or the pencil case, staring into a container, if you like. And therefore, without knowing what I was doing, I was focusing my conscious awareness internally, not necessarily inside, but into a container where it was contained. It could not go outwards, because I didn't want it to go outwards, because I didn't like what was outside. Now that isn't why we meditate, because we don't like what's outside. We meditate to have the ability to focus our conscious awareness in one place and sharpen our ability of samadhi. Thereby, when you do have to and do want to go outside, you can see more clearly, which is what we call vipassana, what is going on around you, be more appreciative of it, and have developed some better skills for dealing with all that arises, good and bad, a deeper understanding. So I may have gone on a little bit there for answering your question, sorry about that, but I got into my, there we go, journey so far. Back to the previous question, back to my childhood. Now the next question from AK, good to see it, how to control expectations from people in life. If you have an answer, please explain, G. Well, I have just answered that question, AK. And because you're calling me G, thank you, this is a sign of respect from Indian people. You're Indian, so like I said, it's often a question that comes from Indian people, because you have expectations of your parents, they have expectations of you. It's a very good and wholesome relationship, but one has to understand that you are individuals, you have your own lives. And they too were once your age, and to some extent maybe they weren't allowed to do their own thing. But respectfully, you can do, if your own thing is this practice, it's no problem. If you want to go off and do something wild and strange and different outside of this practice, then I can't help you with that. That's up to you. You might be going against your parents' expectations, for instance, if you want to become a motor racing driver and they want you to become a doctor. To some extent, I don't think it should really matter what you do, but it may be very important to them. But as long as you're practicing SILA, Samadhi, Panya, you're keeping precepts, you're practicing meditation, and you're developing wholesome mind states, then really it doesn't matter what job you do. Your job is unimportant. It is just a means to an end. It's to feed yourself whilst you're alive. You're going to get old, you're going to get sick, you're going to die, as are your parents. They won't be here for the rest of your life. You will. You have to deal with the consequences of your actions now, and what you are doing now in the future. They won't. So always, before you can help other people, know you have to help yourself first. Before you can help anyone on an aeroplane when it's about to crash, you have to put your own oxygen mask on first. Yes, they say that on the aeroplane announcement, because if you don't, how can you help someone else? So it could be a little baby next to you, but before, put your mask on and help the little baby. Share your mask, fine, but you have to have oxygen first. This is how it works. The next question from Tejas Bise. Thank you, Bhante. May we know the name of this first teacher of yours that you mentioned? Oh yes, well his name is now, he was a Buddhist monk in this Theravada Thai Forest tradition, but his name now is Alan Clymer. But that's irrelevant. We must find our own teachers. He was a good teacher for me that I found by chance, but your meditation teacher, your Dharma teacher, you may have many. Our Dharma teacher is the Buddha. This is our only teacher. The Sangha, the body of monks who teach the Dharma. So the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. The Buddha, the Dharma is the teachings of the Buddha, and the Sangha are those who are living this life as only the Buddha showed how. In only this way, they are in the best position to explain and teach the Dharma to you. And there are so many of them. You can choose someone of a personality type that really works well with you. So who I like, or who I was able to learn from well, might not be the same as you. So like at school, you had certain school teachers you really liked, and your friends may have really liked different school teachers. Just because, say, you marry a woman, or if you're a lady and a lady marries a man, and they ultimately love and adore that person, and they get married, it doesn't mean that I would like that person and want to marry them. But it also, because I don't, doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. You see, it's a very individual and personal thing. So you really have to shop around, and it doesn't matter who's saying, oh, this teacher, he's the best teacher. He might be the best teacher for that person, not necessarily for you. And there's so much available these days, just on YouTube alone. But be careful and understand that as you develop in your practice, you may also need to change to a different teacher, because you're changing, as I answered in one of the other questions, your perspective. So that is the name of that first meditation teacher, but he taught just meditation. Even though he was previously a Buddhist monk, he only taught meditation, and that's all I wanted to know about. This was my pre-Buddhist days. So it doesn't really help because he doesn't do that anymore, and I don't think he's very well known at all. So if I had an overall general teacher that is alive today, so my teacher would be the Buddha, then Ajahn Mun, Ajahn Chah, but alive today, Ajahn Sumedho, who is 88 years old and still teaching to this very day. And I would recommend all people should listen to Ajahn Sumedho, Ajahn Jayasaro, Ajahn. The list then goes on, is endless actually, but he's perhaps the elder in terms of this direct lineage from Ajahn Mun, Ajahn Chah. He's a direct disciple of Ajahn Chah, Ajahn Sumedho. Then I have many other teachers for different times in my life, ranging from young people, younger than me, much younger than me, to very old people. So don't be too restrictive. The Buddha is our teacher. So next question, Luke. How many questions have I got? Oh, quite a few, and I don't know what the time is. I'm just going to carry on. Luke McKean. Hello, Bhante. May I ask which monastery in Thailand you stay at? You may ask, and you have asked, and I have replied, but by email. So anybody who wants to know that, if you send me an email, I will reply. I don't, any questions I receive of a personal or individual nature about yourselves that I get by email, I always try to answer them, but I don't include those in these videos, those answers, or your emails, your questions. And any reference to, how do I put it? places, specific places, names of monasteries and such like that aren't generally available. Also, if you just ask by email, I'll happily let you know. But this is new to me, this public forum format, whatever you call it. So I don't put that kind of information on here. Although I think I've said it many times before by mistake. I hope that's okay, but please, yeah, anybody wants to know, I can just send you a Google Maps thing and you can see exactly where I am. No problem at all. And I'm sure it wouldn't matter if I just said it now, but it's my intention to be careful and respectful of this place where I live, so I won't. I'll do it privately to each individual. So the next question, Dan W. Oh, I have two questions from Dan W. I think I'll read the second one first because that's the order they came in. Many thanks for all your efforts in giving us these talks. They are both useful, comforting and informative. Just out of interest, based entirely on your actual experiences, were there more insect interactions in India or Thailand? I hope I'm reading these questions clearly enough. I've just realised I'm maybe tending to mumble. Right, insects interactions in India or Thailand? Oh, I'd say it's the same. There are different kinds of insects, and I perhaps had less interactions with them personally in Thailand because I was on too long wandering around, and most of the time I was trying to get away from insects and things like that. I had a lot of interactions there though with cows because there are so many of them and they're everywhere, and I really love the cows so much. Here there are no cows and I'm in one place, so I've had to, because I'm living in one place, I'm living in the insects territory and the reptiles territory, the snakes, the geckos, the lizards, all manner of creatures that live here. It's their habitat, their home, and I'm staying as a guest. I'm not moving on, so I've had to get to know them, build a relationship, so I've had closer interactions. But if you're just talking on a what's the word? I can't think of it. Just generally about insects, I think they're much the same. They vary in their toxicity. For instance, there's centipedes in India which are fine. You can just brush them away, or they can touch you, no problem. But the centipedes here are quite dangerous. So they look the same, but the toxicity is different. In the sea, there are more jellyfish in India, but then I don't know. It's just that I haven't seen any here yet. It's all experiential, isn't it? But much the same. It's it's a different ocean I'm on here. This is the Gulf of Thailand. The other side of that peninsula is the Indian Ocean, so it's the same sea, if you like. Although I was on the Arabian Sea side of India. It's a small world, all joined by water. The insects are the same, much the same. I don't think they have cicadas, I didn't notice in India. So it also depends where you are, of course, towns or jungles or forests or villages, cities, but much the same. N. Davis, thank you. So next question from N. Davis, thank you so much, Phra Dan. I've just sent you an email. Oh, you're Mark, I think. N. Davis is Mark. So Mark, the question is from, could you also suggest could I suggest a topic? Dealing with anxiety. Yes, I can talk about, well, I've just very briefly mentioned anxiety, haven't I? But there is a couple of videos on this channel here also, and they're called Anxiety, and it's paired with its close relation, depression. They go well together. Go well together is not perhaps the right expression, but They're closely related, depression and anxiety. And I've made a couple of videos not long ago, or none of them are long ago, about anxiety and depression, both in terms of there's a meditation, a guided meditation to help with that, and there is also a video just about it, anxiety. But I will be making more. It's something that comes up quite often in the future, so thanks for your suggestion, and yes, I will do. But in the meantime, there are some already here. You can just, I think, on the YouTube page, just type in the search anxiety when you're on this channel page, and it should go straight there quite quickly. So another question from AK. Good to see it. How to cook? Oh no, I've had that question already. So the final question from May Play. What is the difference between thought and perception? Well, that's a good one to finish with. Thank you. Yes, a good one to finish with. Thought is just thinking. Thoughts arise, whereas perception is thinking or thoughts as a result of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, or even thoughts about your thinking. So we have 6 sensory perceptions: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. Yes, the 6 sense doors or windows. And what knows, our mind, knows when you are seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, or you're thinking also. So it's like thinking about thinking. This is perception. But thought arises even if you were to close your eyes, close your ears, be in a chamber of sensory deprivation, and you didn't even think, so you didn't have ongoing thinking patterns, investigative stories and such like going on, you had a clear mind, thoughts could still arise. So thoughts, if you like, are unprovoked. So that's the difference. Thought is just thought. Perception is a result of external or even internal stimulation provoking thought. And that also gives you some kind of clear insight into this knower, this Bhutto or Puru, this understanding of our very nature. That when we're happy, we know we're happy. When we're sad, we know we're sad. But what knows we're happy, what knows we're sad, isn't either happy or sad. So, I think that's the end of all the questions. So the end of this talk today. And I hope you could hear the answers clearly. If anything needs any clarification, please feel free to make more comments. And please continue to send your comments and emails with questions in. That's great. Thank you very much. Goodbye.